Hello, this is Don Victor, author of Drawn to Win, host of the podcast Drawn to Win, the director of the Academy of Composition, and the creator of the Core 80 Experience, also known as the See and Grow Rich in Art video course, which you can find out more information at core80.com. This is the Drawn to Win podcast, where I have the incredible privilege to draw artists from around the world into fun and meaningful conversations around art and life, and yes, maybe even a little food. You can hear us each week on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So make sure you subscribe so you always have a seat among friends. Let's get into the show. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Indeed. What part of the UK are you in?
Actually, I'm just into Wales, just near Bristol.
Ah, okay. So I'm ignorant when it comes to this. Is the UK and Wales two different places, like two different countries, or is it like how does that work?
Well, the UK is made up of Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland and England. So there's kind of four.
That's cool. So that makes sense. It's the United Kingdom. So I guess those are all little. Were they all little kingdoms of their own, and then they kind of worked together or banded together?
Kind of. I think there was a little bit of fighting going on back a few centuries ago, but I think we kind of worked out these differences now. We work together now.
So whoever won all those wars, England, basically told everybody else that they're going to be part of this thing.
Pretty much, I think.
Okay. I'm just thinking of Braveheart, the movie.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So Wendy, what are you currently working on in your studio?
Oh, I always have several things going on at the same time. So
Nice.
maybe when one thing's drying a bit, I'll go and work on something else. Or maybe I'll be sketching for another piece or research or so I've probably got about, I don't know, half a dozen things going on at the moment.
Wow. And are these primarily things that you're under contract with, or are they things that for a gallery show, like personal work?
Mainly personal work. I've just completed one commission. So at the moment, I think they're all just personal.
Wow. And what's driving you personal? Like what are these pieces about? Is there a common theme through them or an idea?
Well, portraits mainly. But I do like to. Trouble is, my tastes are so widespread. So I love doing portraits and landscapes, and I've got a still life going on the go at the moment. And I'm working on another big piece with several figures. I'm also planning for another big piece with several figures.
Nice. Now, by big piece, is it life-size piece, or like what do you mean by big piece?
As in, more than one figure on a big canvas.
Okay.
Maybe 3 foot by 2 foot, something like that.
Okay. So you mean it's just a much more complex piece of work. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Do you like that challenge?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I love doing portraits and I love doing landscapes, but I think figurative is, lots of figures is probably my first love. Yeah.
And then what is it about the figures and especially the multiple figures that attracts you so much to them?
Oh gosh, there's so much. I think first and foremost, there's the relationship between the figures. And the different poses and nuances, the expressions. I mean, you can just get so much into it. So I think that's probably why I'm drawn to it. And of course, figures are just fascinating anyway, I think, really.
I'm really going to enjoy this conversation because I once had a student who was from England, and I always loved at the end of the sentence she would say, "Really?" and and you just said it, and I was like, ah, that's so cool. Um, when you do your the multiple figures or the portraits, are you working like with the multiple figures? Is this concepts that you're creating out of your head, and then do you bring in a model or models? Like what's your process when you're doing something like that?
Well, I use a mixture of different techniques, and yes, I kind of get an idea, and then I've actually used my husband and my daughter and members of the family to model for me in different
Nice.
poses, wearing different costumes, etc. Sometimes I'll just do sketches, and then they will go in, and sometimes I'll get pictures, photos, and use those mainly for ideas on poses more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it's pretty much just made up, I guess.
And is there something that you're trying, like a message that you're trying to communicate through these pieces? Or is it just the joy of capturing these nuances and relationships and celebrating that?
Well, I think it's kind of new to me, really. I mean, the first big piece I did was the mermaid, and I called it the rescue. Um, and that is, to me, was quite deep, actually.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of things going on in that, where you had the bride who as is in the water somehow. She may have thrown herself in, she may have just fallen, but in the background you'll see because this is all underwater, so there's
Mm-hmm.
a derelict kind of building in the background, which is a church. So the bride and the church is all very much, about marriage and breakdown of marriage and um, the rescue would perhaps be mythological beings or fantasies of some sort that would
Mm-hmm.
um, help get through that breakdown of a marriage, or it could even represent religion itself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there's many things, and lots of different people see different things in the painting. Um, so yes, quite deep in some ways. It really is quite a lot going on.
I'm looking at it right now. It's really really cool.
Yes,
Uh, I love the movement in the fabrics and the hair and the. I mean, you really kind of like feel the water just like spinning around her, and
mm,
at the same time, what I like is that you feel her descending. She doesn't
yeah,
feel like she's just floating, and she doesn't feel like she's ascending, right? So she does feel like she's sinking,
yeah,
um, which is really, really cool. And is that a merman in the back?
yeah. Yeah, mermaids and mermen. Yeah.
I'm like, huh, a merman. That's awesome. That's
Mm.
really, really cool. Really cool.
Thank you.
Um, I saw you had another image of a mermaid.
Yeah.
Um, so what's up with the mermaid stuff?
Well, I don't know. My daughter loves mermaids, and she wanted me to paint a mermaid, so I did, and everybody absolutely loved it. So it was, come on, do some more, do some more. So I've ended up with two paintings of mermaids. In fact, there's actually three, because there's another one on the way at the moment. Not
Okay.
finished yet, so there will be three altogether. Yeah.
I'm looking at your dreamscape painting,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, what I really like about it is the fact that you have this European looking woman, okay?
Yeah.
And I like that her gown is very plain. She's very blonde, meaning that her gown is light value, her skin is light value, her hair is light value. Um, and so she has this very almost. simpleness to her, right?
Yeah.
And yet she's surrounded, looks like almost like a temple, but highly ornamented, highly designed, highly cultured, crafted, where they're and with all of the texture. And it's interesting because of the statues and the lizards and the reliefs that you have on the wall. It, it doesn't feel European at all. It feels like she's in some other literally world.
Yeah.
Um, what were you trying to capture with this image? Like, what inspired this?
It literally was a dream. And it was
Awesome.
just one of those dreams I just had to get down onto the canvas. Um, and I quite often come up with kind of images, and I don't really understand what they mean, but I just get that sense of having to put them down into some kind of physical form.
Hmm.
So that was one particular image. There's about two or three in that series, but I haven't got around to doing the others yet.
Okay.
All with the same figure, wearing the same nightgown,
Hmm.
but in very strange circumstances. And one of them is actually under a waterfall. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, so but I haven't got around to doing the others yet. They're
cool.
still there in the back of my mind, on the back boiler, as they say.
In the back boiler. Wendy, um, are you on the computer or on your phone?
I'm on the computer.
Okay. Because sometimes when you're talking, you come really clear and then you go away.
Oh,
If you can just make sure that you're close to the mic, just so that we can
yeah,
capture your voice.
yeah,
Um, so you have a couple other. uh, have you been dreaming uh, for a while and trying to, like, even in sketch form, like try to capture your dreams like on paper?
yeah, yeah. I do that quite a lot actually. I've got another couple that came to me quite recently. So I'm trying to get those down uh,
Mm-hmm.
in sketch form at the moment, and then I'll try and figure out how's the best to get them onto the canvas. I don't know yet. We'll see.
When did this experience start to occur with you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I guess it's always been there. I don't know.
I'm going to try to nail you down to a date.
Oh God,
Not a
yeah,
date, to an age, or at least an age range.
age range.
Um, how around what age were you when you had that first vivid one? Um, that you were like, whoa, this is something interesting that
Do you know? I really don't know. I really don't. I've always remembered having these kind of images come into my head.
Hmm,
So presumably quite young. I don't know.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Uh, I like it. I like that you do this. I actually was putting a book together called The Pencil Prophet, and it was just a book of dreams over the last 30 years that I've had, um, that I was just drawing them out,
Yeah.
um, dreams and visions. And so I like that that you're doing this, something very similar, and that you even taken a few to the level of completion that you've done, like with this one. Or would you like to have a show based around them?
One day, yeah, I guess. I think that's what I'm struggling with at the moment is trying to find a gallery that will take my kind of artwork. I mean, a lot of galleries where I am at the moment are still doing all this like really modern stuff.
Mm,
Then they're still not really getting onto the representational arts kind of bandwagon at the moment.
yeah.
So it's really hard to find somewhere to get this stuff out there.
Well, let me ask you this: why do you think you need a gallery to do that?
Um, well, I mean, how else are people going to see my work apart from on the internet? I have my website, but people need to know that the website's there.
So
So,
why couldn't you rent a room for a weekend? Because the reality is, if you're going to sell work, you're probably going to sell it the night of the show, maybe a day or two after. But after that, usually you're not selling, right? Um, so why not rent a room and put up a show, and then you don't have to split 50% of your money with anyone?
yeah, sure. But I think these they tend to work out quite expensive, and I've looked into this, and I think the only way to do it really is to corroborate with somebody else and split the costs, because it's not just about hiring the room. Even you've got to get kind of advertising and um, you know somebody to sit there with the works all day. Um, there's quite a few costs involved as well. So it's something I'm thinking about for the future, but not at the moment.
Gotcha. You just gave me an idea.
Yeah, good one, I hope.
Yeah. Write it down because I don't want to lose it. uh, have you had gallery shows before?
Um, Not shows on my own. I've been in galleries.
Mm.
They've taken some of my work and put them in, and then the gallery's closed down or we've moved house. I had a show in Belgium.
Mm.
That was at the NATO headquarters. Have an international library there, and so I had some of my work in there. But again, that was split between myself and another friend who's an artist from the States.
Mm.
So there were the two of us in the show. That was quite cool. I enjoyed that.
Nice. Did you get to sell work?
Not at the show, no. But I did get a couple of commissions from it, which was quite good. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Um, so when did you stumble upon this your superpower as a artist?
Oh, good heavens. Do you know, I think like most artists, I've always drawn or painted, since I was a kid. I think most of us start like that. Um, but I think most of us give up when we get to about 10, 11, something like that.
Hmm.
And I continued. I just carried on, and then I got married and had children and gave it up for a while. And then I just suddenly took it up again, about 2004.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I kind of, the kids have grown up, and I just immersed myself in it from there, really.
You're like, I'm taking it back.
Yeah, I am making it my own. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Ooh, when you came back to it, what were two or three pillar moments in the last 14 years that solidified in you, like this is who you are, this is what you're doing, and this is, this is your new parenthood?
Well, I think the biggest moment for me was I was studying for a degree, doing a technical degree, and I was working really, really hard. I had young children at the time, and actually had a heart attack.
Oy.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of artists do this. They have this kind of life-changing moment, and they suddenly realize that actually life is for living, and you shouldn't be working so hard. You should be doing what you love and following your heart and all that. And so I had one of those moments, really. And I was working way too hard, and I think it just kind of made me step back, re-examine my life, what direction I was going in. And yeah, I realized that this is what I should be doing. But I spent another few years still working really hard. And, I was working till 10 o'clock in the evening and then coming home, having something to eat, getting up at 6 again the next day. And it was just that endless treadmill that I think we all go through. And again, I just thought, no, really, I should be doing this full time. I was struggling to find any time at all to paint. So I just said, no, that's enough. I'm going to do what I want now. So I gave up work, and it's been full time ever since, really.
Wow. That's. Was it scary for you to give up the work, or were you just like ready to do it?
Oh no, I was very ready to do it, I think.
Okay.
And my husband's working, so I didn't have to rely on selling my artwork for for a living. So that made it a lot easier.
Indeed.
And he's been amazing. He's been so supportive of what I want to do, and I think if he hadn't have been so, then I would have found it really difficult.
It's it's an incredible gift a lot of husbands give to their wives, is that space to
Yeah.
be themselves. And they should have a national artist husband day.
Definitely.
And an international artist husband day.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are a few wives out there too who sacrifice a lot for their husband's love of art. Yeah.
Fair enough. International Artist Spouse Day. There
Yes,
we are.
exactly.
Okay. Um, there are actually, I can think of one actually right now, and she ran an ad agency, and which then enabled her husband to be an artist and also begin to teach. So she was the main breadwinner in that situation, but it worked for them.
Yeah.
But that's cool. That's a that's a blessing. It's a wonderful thing. So in like, where would you like to be ideally in another, let's say, 5 years? Where would you like to be with your work? What do you want the world to remember Wendy for?
I don't know. I guess I just want to just keep painting. I'm not sure what's going to happen in 5 years' time, but I've got so many ideas in my head about what I want to do, but I just want to keep doing that. And if it gets me in galleries, great. I guess it would be nice to be recognised in some capacity, such as one of the maybe the Royal Portrait Society or something. But if it doesn't happen, that's fine. As long as I can keep painting and getting these ideas down, then that's all that matters, really. I guess it would be nice to sell a few paintings too.
Well, in your case, that's not your motivation, right?
No, my motivation is just to paint. I think it's just the love of painting, and I think that's the only thing that really motivates me and keeps me going.
And then may I encourage you, Wendy, that if selling them, for some reason I keep hearing a static. I don't know where that's from. If selling the painting isn't a necessity, then I would encourage you to never allow it to enter into your thinking.
It doesn't usually, to be honest. To say if it happens, that's great, but it's not in the plan of things. It's as I say, the only motivation is just doing the paintings, and one sells. It's great,
And so for you, it's doing the painting and then also putting it out in public to share it with others.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And to be honest, even if I don't share it with others, that's fine, as long as I can keep doing what I'm doing.
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah.
When you have that kind of freedom, it's a beautiful thing because you really get to explore making art for art's sake, period.
Yeah, exactly. And I could experiment with
Mm-hmm.
things, and I don't have to stick to a particular style or genre. If I fancy doing a landscape, I'll do one, and if I fancy doing it in oil or watercolor, I can.
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever I feel like doing at the time, and I think a lot of artists get kind of stuck into a rut where they have to keep producing the same style of
Yep.
painting because that's what the gallery is expecting them to do and what the public expects them to do. And I don't
And
feel like I'm constrained in that way, which is great.
exactly. And some of those artists, they have it's their success becomes their hindrance because it's like they're known for this and know they're this creative spirit that wants to try something else or break something, break out of it and do something different. The problem is the art market doesn't care about them as the artist. They care about the object that they're making. And once you change that product, it's not the same product. And now they could, lose their house.
Yes, yeah,
And so it's a lot of artists hit a certain level of success and then out of fear they basically created a cage for themselves.
yes, yeah. And I've heard a lot of artists who kind of got stuck in this rut, and they say, "Oh, well, I'd really love to do something different, but they can't. They can't get out of it." And I don't think that's what making art is all about, really. So I think it's hard. I think it's hard being an artist because people do have these expectations. Um, so I'm kind of really pleased that I'm not in that situation at the moment. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
will be sometime in the future, but not at the
Mm-hmm.
moment.
Degas had that kind of experience because his father owned some company and was a very, very wealthy. And
Mm,
so I think he was probably in his late 30s, 40s before he actually ever had to like worry about money.
mm,
And it was after his father passed away, his brother, I guess, took over his father's company, and his brother was living in the United States in New Orleans. And so Degas went to visit him and found out that basically his brother, I guess, mismanaged the business and there was no business.
oh, no.
There was no family fortune anymore. And so Degas had to, at that point, start figuring out actually how to make a living.
Mm,
And so I believe what he would do is he would organize like gallery shows and things like that. Uh, and but for at least a huge part of the beginning of his adult life in art, he was just making the art and exploring it for the sake of art. It was he didn't
mm,
have to pay a light bill.
yeah, yeah.
And and that's a beautiful place to be, very beautiful. So I'm happy that you're there.
Yes, I'm quite grateful that I am here. Yeah,
Now, because of that, you have time. You have time to craft a great work of art.
yeah.
Um, how much time do you put into a piece, roughly?
Oh, it depends on the piece very much. I mean, sometimes I paint landscapes in pastel, and that they're really quick,
Hmm.
But an oil painting obviously takes longer, and depends on the complexity of the painting as well. The one in Dreamscape with all the detail on the buildings, I mean,
Hmm.
that took ages.
Well, I
Um,
don't know what real quick means, and I don't know what ages mean.
yeah, well, okay. Uh, Real quick for a pastel landscape, I mean, I can go out and do a sketch in an afternoon.
Hmm.
Um, and because you don't have to wait for anything to dry, it's there. You just take it home and it's done. But I wouldn't sell those. They're just sketches and for pleasure, I think. I quite like going out and doing some plein air. Oil paintings, I did one of my mother, which is a life-size painting.
Is it
Um,
Doris?
Doris, that's right, yeah.
I wrote that one down. I was like, oh, I want to know the story behind this one.
She's my mother. That's life size. It's actually a little bit bigger than life size. And that took me about 6 months, I think, from start to finish.
Mm.
Um, I mean, obviously, there was a huge emotional stuff that came with that one. My mother actually passed away, so
Mm.
it was really difficult to paint, and I kept having to leave it and then come back to it. But yeah, but I think because of the size of it and the detail in the dress, it took a long time. So about 6 months, I think, altogether.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So all the others are kind of anything in between, really. And it's hard to tell sometimes because you start on it, then you wait, let it dry, maybe come back and do another layer. And in the meantime, I'm working on something else. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to gauge how long you actually spend working on that one particular painting.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's not taking a week.
Yeah, oh no.
So if it's 3 to 6 months, then that's
Yeah.
okay. Um, when I looked at the Doris, I like her hair.
Yeah.
Uh, she reminds me of my grandmother. My grandmother had thick, thick, thick hair, and
Yeah.
she was like in her 90s,
Yeah.
and e- but what intrigued me was the depth of her eyes, and then you have her mouth, and almost kind of, it's like almost pushing to the one side, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I was like, is she thinking about something? So I'm kind of curious because in a lot of your work, what I like about it is, yes, you're focusing on the form and the person,
Mm.
but every single one of them, it's like you're actually doing a really incredible job at capturing them in a thought.
Yes. Well, with that particular one, my mum always had this kind of bemused look. Bemused. She was very sharp. Mentally very sharp right up until the end. And
Hmm.
she was very bright, but she was always kind of bemused, always thoughtful about what was going on. But in a nice way. Very curious. I think is
Mm.
the best way to describe. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what I see in her. Like she has the intense eyes that she's studying something,
Yes,
and
exactly.
then with her lower part of her face, it's almost like a hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
like almost like a little grinding of the teeth when you know. That's cool. That's awesome.
Thank
I
you.
like I like that one a lot.
Thank you very
Uh,
much.
Now, who is Ernesto?
Oh gosh, no, that was from the school when I went to
Okay,
the
gotcha.
academy. And I did actually it was a workshop outside of the school with Maestro John Angel,
Mm-hmm.
and that's actually from a photograph. So it's
Mm.
not. I don't usually like to work from photographs, but that particular one was. Um, but yeah, I think he turned out quite well. I think.
Indeed, indeed. Now, how long were you at the Angel Academy?
Um, I was there for about 15 months, I think. I didn't do the full 3 year. It was in Florence. I mean, it was wonderful to be in Florence. I really loved it.
Hmm.
Of course, it works out expensive when you're there for, paying for tuition and accommodation and everything.
Sure.
But I absolutely loved my time out there. It was amazing.
And did you learn to speak a little Italian?
No,
Oh,
No, they
Bring me
all
my
speak
food.
English. No, they speak English, and they love tourists out there. So as soon as they know your English, they want to practice their English.
Yeah, which is,
So you,
can you
yeah,
buy this? uh, okay, so you're there. They're practicing their English.
yeah.
I'll, I'm gonna ask you what was your favorite Italian food you ate when you were there, but not right now. That'll be later.
Okay, okay,
Uh, so you're there for a year and a half,
yeah, yeah.
and what was it like there? Like, were you just drawing and painting every day for a year and a half? I mean, like,
Yeah, it was quite intense actually, and wonderful experience. Yeah, I mean the school's open until I think about 9 in the evening. Of course, lessons don't go on till then, but most people will be working, long hours to try and get work finished, and they call it. It's more like a family.
hmm.
Ex angels we call them. I like
Oh, really?
family
Nice.
spread across the world, and there's people from just about every country you can think of, and made many friends. Really enjoyed it. Loved the time there.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So when you go to an academy like that, you come out the other end, and you have this incredible skill set in representational work.
Mm.
Um, what was it about going towards representational versus something like more impressionistic?
I think it's the um, level of excellence. I think that's what I'm striving for, and I'm not there yet, but it's what I strive for is to try to achieve that level of excellence. Like the old masters. I mean, I was recently in the Netherlands and looking at some of the old masters is just, they've got Rembrandt there and the Dutch masters, and it's just incredible to see the level of skill. And I think that's what I'm striving for. It's going to take a while, I think.
So what you're so excellence for you equates to a high standard in skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I
Okay,
mean, not just in the skill in painting, but composition and knowledge and yeah, the whole works.
that's cool. I think I'm gonna ask that question more often. uh, eh, when you were there and you were going through this micro evolution, this quantum leap, um, because I can't believe that you would go through an academy like that um, for a year and a half and not have like these huge growth spurts, these huge moments. Um, what was one or two of those experiences?
Um, I think I initially I'd never learned how to draw the figure from life.
Mm,
So the first couple of terms, come to terms with measuring and making sure the proportions were right, and I mean that was amazing. I really enjoyed that. Um, but as far as major leaps, I think it's an ongoing process. And I don't think there are any major leaps, really. It's all just small improvements all the time, just adding a little bit better and a little bit extra as you go. You don't really notice the big leaps until you look back. Maybe, after you've been there for a while, you look back at the work from before you went and it's kind of wow.
hmm.
But no, you don't notice the big leaps. It's all very much kind of baby steps the whole way. It's fascinating, really.
Really? um, nice. And would you like to go back again?
Um, yes and no. I still think there's room for more learning experiences, but I think there are other places that I need to be. I mean, that style is great, but it's just the beginning, you know. I think once you come out of a school like that, there are lots of other things that you need to be looking to, such as finding your own style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all these schools tend to have this kind of academic style to them. And then thinking about your own compositions and what you want to paint. You know, it's not just about the figure standing there as a solitary. You know, you need to be looking at, you know, how you want to express yourself. It doesn't always have to be that perfect finish.
Yeah.
Uh, so leave it. So when you come out of a school, it's almost the beginning. You
Mm.
know, and you're moving on to many other areas. So I'm looking forward to doing more, you know, studying, but with different artists and different styles and different methodologies, and you know, just kind of moving on and hopefully getting better all the time.
If the drawing and the painting, like when you said you come out of the academy, it's really just the beginning. And
Mm,
so let's say that skill that you developed is a language,
mm,
that now you have the ability to communicate something.
yeah,
But now you're like, okay, well, how do I want to communicate in a way that is within my frequency, my cadence, but also figuring out what is it that I want to communicate, or that
yeah,
I might even we might even feel that I must communicate, right?
yeah.
Um, so, what are some things that you do, or that you think maybe you should do, um, to help develop an excellence in the ideas that you have?
Um, it's a good question. Um,
That's why I get paid the big money.
yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of it is composition. I think that's the key to get to communicating. You
I
know,
agree with you 100% on that. But
yeah.
before you go there,
Okay.
because that's now kind of falling back into a skill set, like something that you do with your hands, and like how you're saying something.
Mm.
Um, where what I'm trying to get you to focus on is where is the message coming from, not how it's said or the style it's said in or the grammar in which it's spoken, aka the composition. Um, but where is the message coming from for you?
Um, I guess sometimes it's just about the philosophy you have on life, or
Hmm.
I guess it comes from just seeing something that you want to get across to the audience or to whoever's seen the painting, and you may see things in there that other people don't.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're trying to do is to show show people that special something that you can see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the main thing. And the other thing is my dreams, these weird
There it
dreams.
is.
You know, where did that come from? Well, let's get that down, and let's I think it's nice that people talk about the paintings, and they give me ideas. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
see this in this painting. Oh, really? I didn't see that. And so it sometimes it's a good talking point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really love the way some paintings inspire this dialogue, you know,
Mm.
and it gets people talking and communicating together.
That's
So,
beautiful.
yeah, I really like that. It really is about communication. It isn't just about pretty pictures.
Indeed. It's interesting. You just inspired a phrase in my mind, a concept which I've never, um, it's never come through me this way before.
Mm.
But with you and what you're saying, now this may not be the same for other people, but for you and what you're saying, it sounds like your paintings have a function, and the function of your paintings is to help facilitate a conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's true. Yeah,
And it would be interesting to then add to that the source or the inspiration of the conversation it comes from your dreams.
quite possibly. Yeah, I think sometimes it is just about seeing something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like Doris, my mother. That's an interesting story actually because she was born with hair, lip, and cleft palate,
Oh, okay.
and at the time she was born, they didn't have an operation available to normal ordinary people,
Mm-hmm.
so the children were just left to die basically.
Hmm.
Um, they were born because they couldn't suck, they couldn't feed,
Yeah.
and it was her grandmother who said, "Well, we're not having any of that," and so she spoon fed her, and she managed to keep her alive. And when my mother was, I don't know, 3 or 4, I think, they just had this pioneering operation, and which she had. But unfortunately for her, I mean, obviously, it's quite a deformity, and
Mm-hmm.
she was called all sorts of names as a child, monster, beast, and this is from her, members of her own family. She had an awful life. So for me, that is the talking point. That's the message that I wanted to get across in the painting. Is that there's this wonderful human being who was in her 80s at the point of this painting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if it wasn't for the strength of her grandmother, she wouldn't be here. It was
Wow.
her grandmother saying, "No, I'm going to feed this child. It may be hard, but I'm going to do it." So that's the whole kind of conversation and meaning and depth to that painting that people don't really know you know, until they have the conversation and see the painting. And so to me, that's important. You're right. It's the message that I want to get across. It's
That's an incredible message. Can I ask you, like, uh, your that was your mother, right? Doris was your mother,
that's right. Yes.
right? And was your father with her?
When
Like, were they married together and that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So, what I'm trying to get at is that while she grew up, and even people from her own family and the people and around didn't know how to handle this shock to them, right? And
Mm.
so they would say these horrible things, and yet, um, when your dad met her, did she still have her cleft palate?
Yeah, I mean, there's the scars there, and she was quite badly deformed, and but yes, I mean, even in later in life, she
Yeah.
was awful names, called ugly, and
Huh.
one phrase that came to mind was, well, she's no oil painting, well, actually, she is now.
And I love it.
Yeah, quite amazing. Yeah.
I love it. Um, wow. There's a beautiful painting by Van Gogh.
Mm.
Um, and hmm, I'm sorry, I just brought her painting back up. Uh, and he paints this young boy who's just I forget what he is, but he's just like this little servant, poor boy.
Mm.
But the way he designs the painting and he orchestrates the lines that construct this poor peasant boy.
Mm.
He uses a tremendous amount of verticals and a specific type of diagonal
Mm.
that cause the image to vibrate authority, kingship, power, stability.
Mm.
And so when you look at the image, you see the poor peasant boy, but you feel integrity and an intrinsic um, confidence in him.
Mm.
And and I always find it such a wonderful treat when these masters would play these psychological, emotional, I call them changes of charge, but like these games with us where they may show us something to our eye that we consciously recognize, oh, that's the image of the thing.
Mm.
But they were also able to capture the spirit and the soul and the energy of the thing.
Mm.
And sometimes they would play these neat games where there would be a juxtaposition of the two. Um, and yeah, I would agree that you have within your dreams, and it's apparent even within your family, from your husband to your father to your grandmother, like
Mm.
these people who extend life and love.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. But yes, you're right. I think my family is very to have like a strength, you
Mm,
and a very caring, very close family, I think. Yeah. And you'll find many of my family members in my paintings. Callie's my daughter, and then there's my granddaughter.
oh, Callie, yeah, I like this one.
Which one?
The Callie,
The portrait, yeah.
yeah, I like her eyes. Like she's looking at you, and then
Yeah,
she has a little smirk, right? So it's
yeah,
like almost like a not a seriousness, but like I was gonna say like a dead seriousness, but then like you have this smirk, and it's this neat little, again, juxtaposition of two emotions where it's just
yeah.
like whoa. um that was a fun experience when popping that little painting. And then oh, the little dancer you said.
Yeah, and Charlotte actually is,
uh,
yeah, she's got this funny little expression on her face, and I love it.
yeah, Charlotte too.
Mm.
She has your mom's eyes.
Yeah. Well, actually, Callie has my mum's eyes, but you can't really see it because of the age difference, I think. But yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well,
So
that
yeah,
would make, yeah, well, they're
Callie,
all three of them very intense eyes.
yeah.
That's cool, very, very cool.
Thank you.
And who's Helena? What a great name.
Helena, she's amazing. She was another artist at the Angel Academy.
Hmm.
Um, and she's doing very well for herself at the moment. Helena Valley is her name, and I think she's in the States at the moment, just finishing a course. I think it's at the New York Academy. I'm not sure. But she is a brilliant artist. You should check her out. She's brilliant. So she was a friend from there.
You said it, or, Helena Valley?
Right, I'm going to have to find out how to spell her name. So
Yeah. Uh, okay. Well, I'll find her.
I will send you her name through. I hope she doesn't mind me saying this. Then you can
She's
maybe get
gonna.
in touch with her. But
You
she's
guys are
amazing.
gonna have to fight now.
Yeah.
Um. What? Uh, who's the portrait of the gentleman? I
Well,
like that.
That was fun. We were living in Belgium at the time, and they had these gardens. These big country houses with all these lovely gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd just gone to visit for the day, and we had no idea, but they had this festival on, which was a festival of people dressed in the Venice,
Hmm.
the Venetian, kind of with the masks and the big gowns and the amazing costumes. And he was there, and he just had that really lovely kind of gentlemanly look about him. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just decided I wanted to paint him. I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you just ran up and took a photo of him and ran away, or did he come and actually like pose for you?
Yeah, he actually came and posed for us. Well, they all did actually. And they kind of all marched around these gardens with hundreds of people taking photos of them. But yeah, so he just stood there, and he let me take like loads and loads of photos of him. And so I took them all back and decided which one I wanted to paint.
I love the shape created in the space underneath his hat, his ear, his face, his collar, and then his shoulder.
Yeah,
Like just that whole little shape that's created in there.
yeah, yeah,
It,
yeah.
it's just such an just such a pretty shape. Huh. Um, Very cool work. Very cool work. And I know it's probably frustrating people listening to this because they're like, we can't see it. Probably should have told you where to go see it. Well, you have to now re-listen to the podcast and go to wendychild.co.uk to see it.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, Wendy, I'm going to put you on a plane. I'm going to send you back to Italy for a minute.
Yeah,
And you're back in Florence. It was Florence, correct?
that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And you're at the Angel Academy, you're working all day, you're a little exhausted, and you and the girls and a couple of the guys are like, let's go get some food,
Mhm.
right? My son once said to me, he said, Dad, I know how to speak Italian. I said, really? He's like, yeah. She's like, I wanted the pizza. He's only 7, so like when he said it was just like
Oh,
the
yeah.
funniest thing ever. I wanted the pizza. um, so you're in this moment, you want to run out somewhere to get something to eat. What was it that you had to have more than once a week when you were there?
What do you mean apart from the pizza?
Apart from the pizza. If it's the pizza, that's fine.
Yeah, there was a little restaurant actually just around the corner which we tended to go to quite regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of it, which is a shame, but tiny little place, but really lovely food.
Mm.
And my favorite dish there was it was like little pasta parcels, which had pear. It was pear wrapped in this um, pasta parcel with a cheese sauce.
Really? So like cheese and fruit.
Yeah,
Interesting.
but the pear was quite a delicate flavor, and then you had the cheese sauce, and then it had these small like peppercorns in the sauce as well. So,
Wow.
oh, it was so good.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Like
really love that.
just trying to hold in my brain those three those 4 flavors. Well, it was
Yeah,
the 4 flavor: the cheese, the peach. I mean the pear,
pear, yeah,
and the peppercorn, and then the pasta. Like even like just trying to hold the thought of that. Like I could feel my taste buds like being triggered. Oh man, I've never had that experience. Like like just even to have those 4 things in my brain at the same time. Wow. That
yeah.
wow. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, they just did so many different pasta dishes.
Hmm.
It's really hard to remember all of them, but that's one that stood out in my mind. So I really love that. I used to have that quite regularly.
Are you the type who goes to the same place and orders something different every time, or you go to the same place and they know what you want?
Well, I do like to experiment. I do like to try new things. But if I find something I really like, then quite often I'll have the same thing again. Um, I do try to mix it up a bit sometimes, like my paintings, I guess. Mm. Don't just stick to portraits or landscapes. I try my hand at most things. But yeah, I do like variety and interest. So, what's your favorite meal?
What's my favorite meal?
Yeah.
Oh man. Um, honestly, probably just a simple, big old fat steak.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Well, when I was in Portugal, I went to this place, and it was a good piece of meat, but it was the experience that was really incredible.
Mm.
And they brought a steak out. They didn't cook it. It was like, like basically raw, but they brought it out on this hot rock.
Oh yeah.
And you would just cut a little piece of meat and then like cook it
Yeah.
and eat. And it was so simple. It was just brilliant. And the experience of it and the meat itself was really, really good.
Yeah.
So
But that seems
yeah,
to be the fashion now. It's kind of steaks and chicken and a grill, but cooked on a rock. On your plate. There's like loads of people doing that now.
cool. Oh, we used to have this restaurant called Tailgater, and it's weird because you'd go there and you pay more money
Yeah.
because and they would make you cook your own food.
Yeah.
Like,
We did, I think it was a Lebanese restaurant we went to where they did that. The
oh really?
food came and you had to cook it yourself. You think, hang on a
Yeah.
minute, I'm paying for this. This is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was cool. It was like this huge grill, and you talk to people, and you're out there cooking your steaks, and they had bread you could throw on, and half the people burnt it. It was like
Yeah. Yeah.
it was such a cool experience. Um, and and then when the economy crashed in 2008, they shut down, and
Mm.
they were there ever since I think I was a kid. They were there, and so it was a sad moment for us.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah.
Um, so how can people get connected with you there, Wendy?
Well, I'm on Facebook, so you should be able to find me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well.
And they
And
just type in Wendy Child, like in the sense of a small adult.
yes, yes, a small annoying thing. Um, so on Facebook, yeah, I think it should be under Wendy Child. If not, there's a name I use quite often, when I'm online, Artemisia, after the artist Artemisia.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe that will help you find me. Um, so I'm also on Instagram, and hey, look, email me. I think you can email me from my website.
Okay, cool. Oh, and you have a blog here too. Um, okay, so under contact. All right, so what I'll do is I'll put your website address in the show notes so that
Yeah.
people can get to your work then.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome, Wendy. Well, I had a fun time talking with you,
And
and
you. Thank you
and
very much for inviting me. It's been great.
indeed, indeed, I'm gonna go eat now. You made me all
Okay,
hungry.
that's to it's there. Yeah.
Awesome. Be well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Delisha van Deventer. I am from Gauteng in South Africa. I am a landscape artist. I'm currently doing the Core 80 at the Academy of Composition. This course has had an invaluable impact in my life, into what my art should look like and how I should be presenting my art to the art world. When I was challenged with what it means to interpret and read and analyze the old masters, I found myself starting to read their thoughts and the way they put certain objects in strategic places, the way their bodies would line up and lean in a certain direction, and why certain elements were lined up. All of these were so beautifully composed and strategically designed to fit into a story, so that when the viewer looks at the painting, they are mesmerized and the energy of the piece draws them into the story. As an artist, I will be applying these principles so that my art can have that wow factor and go to another level. I highly recommend this course to all aspiring artists, especially amateur artists, accomplished artists, and as well as gallery owners.
In just 30 days, the Core 80 experience teaches you to decode the intentional design underneath great masterpieces. Through video lessons, assignments, and feedback, you learn to recognize the underlying structures like thrust maps, echoes, and gamuts that give master compositions substance and gravitas. Knowing how master artists and illustrators compose their artwork unlocks your ability to give your artwork more meaning and energy. Enroll today and get a 7-day no-hassle money-back guarantee at core80.com.